What it do, bruh? Talk of the town, Nintendo, Doc Trey still holding it down, still make the best games, and you know this, bro. It's the truth. If you don't like it, you can have that seatbelt.
Alright, so this next video is going to be a little bit divisive, but most of that is going to be due to a lot of people being stupid. So, first off, before we get things started, if you're into Nintendo or Nintendo Switch 2 content and you're not yet a subscriber of the channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you like the video, hit the like, and also let me know what you think in the comment section. So, as with what happened with the Nintendo Switch before its launch, people seem to be confused as to what these Nintendo consoles are. Pre-Switch, we had people confused about what a console hybrid is. And yet, still in 2026, we still have some dummies that are still confused about what a console hybrid is. But now, we have people that are confused, or at least pretending to be confused, about what a console generation is. And the topic for today is 10th generation consoles. So, people seem to be debating whether or not the Switch 2 is a 9th generation console or a 10th generation one. The Switch 2 is Nintendo's 10th generation console, period. But wait, no. Period. The Wii U was its 8th generation console and the first 8th generation console on the market. But just because that system failed to sell does not erase the fact that that was Nintendo's 8th generation console. The Switch, the original Switch, the Switch 1, was Nintendo's 9th generation console. It was the successor to the Wii U, which was their 8th generation console. Period. It doesn't matter how bad the Wii U did. And I see all these people, the Wii U did so bad that Nintendo had to rush and put out the Switch in the middle of the Wii U's generation. The middle of the Wii U generation? The Switch came out in 2017. The Wii U came out in 2012. Middle of what? Every single Nintendo system released up until the Switch has come out 5 years after the other one. Oh, they just came out with the Switch in 2017 because the Wii U failed. The Wii was the most successful Nintendo system to date. The most successful Nintendo system to date, and the Wii U still came out 5 years later. Why? Because that was the norm. The only thing that you can say regarding the Wii U to the Switch is that maybe the Switch came out a few months earlier than it could have if the Wii U had been successful. It came out in March instead of November. Big whoop. And I'm seeing these people, oh no, it came out, look how long the PlayStation 4 was out. The PlayStation 4 and Xbox One were out longer because they put out pro systems to extend the life. And the reason they put out these pro systems to artificially extend the life of those systems is because software-wise, they were off to a very late start with PlayStation 4. Remember when everyone used to call the PlayStation 4 the Indie Station 4? That's because they didn't really have any huge games until about 3 or so years into the console generation. That is the reason for these mid-gen upgrades. Well, aside from the fact that Sony wanted to sell some 4K TVs, they got off to a very slow start in terms of software. So if they just now started getting their good games 3 years in, of course they're not going to come out with a new system 2 years later. And I see a lot of people, oh, well, no, they're just talking about this because they compete graphically with those same gens. That's why the Switch is 8th generation. If going by that logic, then why is it that the Nintendo Wii is still considered the same generation as the PlayStation 3 and 360, and there is a much bigger performance difference between the Wii U versus the 360 and the Switch and PlayStation 4? A much bigger difference. Yet, they are considered the same generation. People always seem to forget another important thing here is that console makers start working on their new console the moment their current console, that new console, ships, or even before that. So, Nintendo's already working on Switch 3, right? Just like when the Switch came out, they were already started working on Switch 2. People are forgetting that originally, developers were expecting the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series to come out in 2018. 2018. So that would have been just 1 year after the Nintendo Switch. So just because Microsoft and Sony decide to postpone the releases of their systems, don't expect Nintendo to be like, oh, well, they're not ready, so I guess we should wait too. No, they're not going to wait. For what? What would they be waiting on? Now, with the Switch 2, this is the first 10th generation game console. Doesn't matter how soon it comes out ahead of the competition. And that's what's really funny too. People were expecting, and the industry was expecting, before this tariff thing happened, that the next Xbox was supposed to come out in 2027. And some were even saying 2026. The Switch 2 just came out. So how is that not the same generation? Just because Nintendo has decided to come out first 3 times in a row does not mean that that is not the same generation. The majority of the Switch 2's life is going to be spent competing sales-wise against the PlayStation 6 and the Xbox computer or whatever. That's a fact. There's not going to be a Switch 3 for a very long time. And when the Switch 3 comes out, that's going to be its 11th gen console. But another thing that I find that's very funny is that I noticed that a lot of these Nintendo haters, when they assume that the next Nintendo system isn't going to do well, then they want to label it as the next generation system. Like when they thought that the Switch was going to fail like the Wii U, they're like, oh, well, this is the 9th generation system. And as soon as the sales come out, and you see that the Switch 2 the Switch is a massive success, all of a sudden it's an 8th generation console again. Switch 2 is a 10th generation console from Nintendo. Doesn't matter when Sony and Microsoft decide to drop their systems. Doesn't change the fact that the Switch 2 is a 10th generation system from Nintendo. Period. Have that seat. But anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section.